Hello, my name is Nicole Solis, and the theorist I'll be presenting is Mary Ainsworth, who is most known for her contribution to attachment theories. So, Mary Ainsworth was born in this world as Mary Dinsmore Salter in the beginning of December in 1913. She was born into a middle-class family in Glendale, Ohio, with two younger sisters, and both of her parents were working. When she was only 5 years old, though, her family had to move to Canada as her father had gotten a promotion for a better job there. As for her relationships with her mother and father, she later on remarked, looking back, that she had contrasting dynamics between her parents. So her father had definitely more of a warm and loving type of relationship where he'd tuck her in at night, for instance. But on the other hand, her mother was jealous and rather envious of this relationship. And though she had different relationships with each parent, both were on the same page with their academics. So, as both of her parents had received an education themselves, they pushed her to take her academics very seriously. These efforts paid off as Salter was a commonly high achieving student, and this carried on throughout the continuation of her education into her career. She was lucky to find her passion being psychology at the age of 15 after reading Character and the Conduct of Life by psychologist William McDougall, who was just another psychologist. Then at 16 years old, she started to attend the University of Toronto, and she was an honors student in their psychology program. And this program was very limited with only 5 spots, which she took one of. So 6 years later, she received her bachelor's and decided to go for her master's, still remaining at the University of Toronto. Then she even got her PhD there in 1939 after presenting her thesis titled An Evaluation of Adjustment based on the concept of security. And her time with the University of Toronto did not stop there. Salter began to teach for a few years at the University of Toronto, and until conditions such as World War II urged her to join the Canadian Women's Army Corps in 1942. In the role of Army examiner, she picked up many diagnostic and clinical skills, which became super beneficial with her work later on down the line. Not too long being in the Army Corps, though, she was offered the position of advisor to the Director of Personnel Selection of the Canadian Women's Army Corps. Then in 1945, she reached the major rank. However, once the war was over, she then went back to teaching at the University of Toronto as an assistant professor. And a few years later, she became an Ainsworth after marrying Leonard Ainsworth, who was a veteran and a psychology graduate student himself. Within the same year, the newlyweds decided to move to London, where Mary began to work at the Tavistock Clinic with one of the most influential psychologist theorists for the attachment theory, John Bowlby. Furthermore, in 1954, Ainsworth moved again following her husband to Uganda as he accepted a new research opportunity. She too continued to dive into her research interests involving mother-child bonds, but that matter will be discovered further soon. But once again, she moved to follow her husband, landing in Baltimore, back in the US. Here she began to work at Johns Hopkins University as an associate professor of developmental psychology while simultaneously working in some hospitals administering psychological services at least a couple days a week. It's also noted that though she moved from London and was not in person working with Bowlby, they still managed to communicate and bounce off ideas regarding attachment theory. Having her background researching mother-child bonds and helping further develop attachment theory, she also developed the strange situation test after other researchers were unimpressed with her ideas and findings. Her career ended with her as a professor of psychology at the University of Virginia, where she later retired in 1984. So the strange situation test is one of Ainsworth's biggest contributions to the exploration of attachment theory. Her and her colleague Sylvia Bell performed this experiment where they observed the security of attachment in 1 to 2-year-olds with their mother. The pairs of mother and child were placed into a room with toys while undergoing 8 episodes lasting 3 minutes each. And from the other side of the one-way mirror, both Ainsworth and Bell observed behaviors such as exploration, searching, and displays of how the situation is affecting them. So as mentioned before, there were 8 episodes I have listed in their set order. These episodes consisted of changing environments with different people, including the mother and a stranger, both entering and exiting at different episodes. The observations gathered were classified by levels in which the infant was seeking proximity and contact, whether contact was maintained, whether there was avoidance of proximity and contact, and lastly, if there was resistance to comfort and contact. The results of Ainsworth and Bell's test led them to establish the 3 main attachment styles, being insecure avoidant, secure, and insecure ambivalent or resistant. Later on, it's important to note that there was a 4th attachment style established, and it was titled disorganized. Now let's go a little bit more into detail about the 3 main attachment styles that Ainsworth developed. The first is insecure avoidant, which accounted for the babies who had a level of independence they presented with no separation anxiety and little to interest in the mother's return, where they did not seek comfort. This kind of behavior is resulting from typically emotional neglect and insensitive parental figures. The next type is considered type B, which is secure, where the infants showed separation anxiety, but they seek to explore the environment and they seek comfort in the mother, and they appear to be in distress with the stranger. These infants likely have sensitive parental figures who consistently and appropriately responded to their needs, whether it be physically or emotionally, whatever level that may be on. The third type is insecure ambivalent, which represents infants who were unwilling to explore and rather clingy to their mothers, and these infants displayed an extreme distress in certain episodes. They displayed separation anxiety and much difficulty with soothing. The attachment styles from having parents who could not offer a sense of security and were inconsistent with their response to their child's emotional needs were very much observed in this setting. So based on the conclusions of the strange situation test, Ainsworth came up with the maternal sensitivity hypothesis. And this hypothesis explained her theory that how a mother interacts and behaves toward her children will determine the child's attachment style down the line. Furthermore, she hypothesized that if the mother was more sensitive to the child's needs on various levels and was able to correctly respond to what they needed, that her child would develop a secure attachment style. On the other hand, mothers who were less sensitive or insensitive, so to say, were more likely to have children with insecure attachment style types due to the mother's impatience, whether it be ignoring the child or just incorrect responses toward the child's needs. So, Ainsworth's findings greatly contributed to the idea that the attachment style we develop stems from initial mother-child bonds and specifically mother's behaviors toward a child. However, the emphasis on mother interactions, there were no father impacts brought up in her research. That's just something to note. Now, earlier I discussed these 2 theorists have worked together before and have used each other to bounce ideas off in regard to attachment theory. And Ainsworth was definitely key in further developing some of Bowlby's original ideas. However, they did have some differences. Bowlby was more of a first founding father of attachment theory without empirical data available to him, so he devised a theory that described the attachment process as an quote-unquote all or nothing process, and that a child either met the secure attachment standard or did not. He also thought that if the secure attachment style was not made, the child would grow to have issues emotionally, cognitively, and socially. Ainsworth did wonders in furthering his idea, but debunked this belief that it was an all or nothing aspect. Ainsworth developed the other attachment styles and analyzed individual differences in attachment development between children. She viewed the whole process as more that the child needs its basic security and stability established by parental figures, and then the child could expand their world. So, Mary Ainsworth was an accomplished woman on many levels and a vital psychologist. psychological theorist. To wrap it all up, she was one of the biggest founding fathers in establishing the attachment process theory. Her and Sylvia Bell's strange situation test observed the behaviors of infants in different episodes, and from the results, they were able to form the three main attachment styles, which are secure, insecure avoidant, and insecure ambivalent or resistant. Each style is indicative of a certain nature or behavior in which the infant's mother is likely to present it around the child. This branches into Ainsworth's observation of parents and their role in forming attachment styles. She devised the maternal sensitivity hypothesis, which explored the effects on attachment styles based on whether or not a mother was sensitive or insensitive to her child's needs. Her advancement with attachment has made it easier for any individual to much better understand how and why we operate in relationships and how we attach to others. Now we even have online tests that you can look up and take for free that can help you discover what type of attachment style you have. A big part of who we are is how we respond and how we act with others, and attachment theory reveals a lot about this truth. And this concludes my presentation. Thank you for your time.